I, for one, welcome our new alien robot overlord. Hello, welcome everyone to Live at Epiphan. It is Thursday at 3 o'clock, and Dan and I are here to talk about some cool topics related to streaming, and maybe someday this will be related to streaming too. This is my new router that I got really annoyed with
Wi-Fi 6.
Wow. Yeah, so
how many antennas is that, George? I'm
that is
impressed.
Eight antennas. I went a little extreme, but I think for all
you're
going to
look cool. That's the most important thing.
No, not at all. Not at all. But hopefully, this will help reduce a lot of the bandwidth and interference problems I've been having recently. Wi-Fi sucks. It's noisy and it sucks. So,
are you on Wi-Fi right now?
No, definitely not.
Okay,
but elsewhere in the house, yes. And when that's your internet is your main media consumption, you have multiple people working from home. You need a robust network.
Well, and that's the big thing with Wi-Fi 6, right? Is it's better for more devices.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
it's the idea. But that's not what we're here to talk to.
What are we here to talk about today?
Well, today is one of those days where we love to cover the news and a bunch of different segments that we found valuable and interesting, somehow related to live streaming or just because, from the past couple of weeks. So welcome, everyone. Feel free to say hi in chat. And, if you have any questions or comments about any of the things we're about to discuss, please throw it out in chat. We would love to engage with you on that. But the first segment we're going to go into is the Lowdown. Quick rundown of different news things.
What's the first story today? I'm seeing here we're talking about some acquisitions, some interesting acquisitions.
Yeah. Acquisitions are always interesting. This one, I think, first one I think is interesting and somewhat I'm close to my heart. That's not the right term, but interesting to me because in the past on this show, I have actually talked about Lightstream a number of times because I thought that the system they built as a browser-based, live streaming, encoding piece of software was super cool because you didn't have to install anything. It was partially cloud-driven, really neat. Well, Vitec Group has acquired Lightstream for $35 million, almost $36 million. So, congrats to the guys at Lightstream. That's awesome. I suspect this kind of comes out of the part where they were really trying to work closely with Mixer, if you remember Mixer.
Yeah, don't.
So
What's Mixer?
Exactly. So I have a feeling this might have come as a result of Mixer's downfall a little bit because they hedged their bets on that and it didn't go so well.
What's the deal though here though? Does this cement Lightstream as like an esports platform only? Because I thought Lightstream was pretty capable all on its own and didn't necessarily need to be just tied into gaming.
No, not at all. I mean, it was great, right? It was basically like OBS in the cloud, essentially, right? Like it had some really cool stuff. They had some super cool integrations for bringing in, multiple guests, everyone using a WebRTC style connection, aggregating it in this, again, an OBS kind of a interface in the cloud almost. And so it was really cool. They were trying to leverage some of the low latency technology that Mixer had built in as well. And I think they'll probably carry some of that forward. So from a technology standpoint, what they had was great. I'm really actually curious to see where this goes within Vitec because their other holdings with the other companies that are in that group, it just kind of makes it interesting. We'll have to see where this goes. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Another acquisition here as well. Microsoft confirmed $20 billion acquisition of AI and speech recognition company Nuance. I remember them from Dragon Naturally Speaking. That was Nuance, right?
I think so, but I also know them because they were one of the original developers for Siri as well. They were helping Apple develop Siri initially. So this is kind of an interesting one as well.
What does this mean? Why did Microsoft do this? $20 billion, a lot of money. Is speech recognition more important now for some reason?
AI is a buzz for all kinds of different things. And I think that's really not so much the speech recognition specific part of it, but I think AI in general is part of it. That's definitely a segment that Microsoft is trying to grow. Microsoft is also in a buying phase right now. They are just buying up or attempting to buy up all kinds of companies at the moment. The reality is the pandemic has been terrible for a lot of people, but it's been really good for tech companies. So they have tons of money to go around and acquire things because they've had a great economic year, as of many tech companies. So, where they're going to go with this again, Microsoft already had some AI stuff and some speech recognition stuff. They have Cortana already. So where this goes, I don't know if this is trying to eliminate your competition type of acquisition, or whether it's something that Nuance specifically had that
Maybe
they wanted.
Had some patents that they wanted or something.
Yeah, I mean that's often the case with these sort of things too. Is a matter of it's easier to acquire patents this way.
Next up, Periscope. It shut down last week or a couple weeks ago. That's. Yes. I mean, I'm not really sad or anything, but was anybody still using Periscope? I just thought Periscope was Twitter.
Right. And when I first heard this, I was like, oh no, does that mean you can't live stream on Twitter anymore? Which tells you how often I use Periscope and Twitter, because apparently for several years now, you would just do it natively in Twitter anyways and didn't even use Periscope. Mm-hmm. So I guess this means nothing.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to be crying over this.
No, but although I will say that while we were looking at this story, I tried experimenting with doing a live stream through the native Twitter app on my phone. Mm-hmm. The steps are really annoying. So if anything, Periscope might have been easier to use because it was a dedicated app. So I don't know. We'll see. But again, I don't see too many people live streaming on Twitter either. So
yeah.
Maybe it doesn't matter.
Speaking of dedicated, our friends over at PTZOptics, they have some interesting additions to their line of PTZ cameras.
Yeah.
SRT.
Yeah. So they've updated the NDI version as well as adding SRT to some of their PTZ cameras. We're good pals with the folks over at PTZOptics. Paul there on the left of that video. I was just with him yesterday on a different event, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And I'm actually super excited about this. SRT is a super cool technology. This is just demonstrating the ecosystem growing even more. This means that honestly, very affordable PTZ cameras are getting this level of technology, which is just awesome. And I'm excited to see, how interops between those cameras and our Pearl systems are going to look in the very near future now, and how we can experiment with that stuff. It should be super cool.
Yeah, awesome. This is great. Yeah. So going from affordable cameras to less affordable technology.
Yeah.
Your favorite company, Apple.
My favorite company. Yeah, Apple released a bunch of stuff on 420, and I don't care.
And no,
but yeah, it's literally what I wrote in the notes. But part of the joke is basically the only thing that was kind of revolutionary. It's not, because it's actually a throwback in a way, is they made a bunch of iMacs that are coming colors. Whoopity-doo. So I don't know if anyone is as old as me to remember the first time they made iMacs.
I remember those. That was when I was in grade school. Yeah.
CRT sort of giant tubes.
Yeah, those were popular actually.
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of a throwback to that, which kind of also suggests that they've run out of innovation and they just want to shiny it up a bit. But they did convert them over to the M1 chips. Again, I'm still not a huge fan of this push of things that are supposed to be desktops using ARM-based CPUs. Yeah. I'm still not totally sold on that.
Still some compatibility issues there, eh?
Yeah, and when you look at the specs, it basically is essentially iPad Pro on a stick. So what's the point? I don't get it. I'd rather have the iPad Pro with a battery if that's the case. But that's just my opinion, man.
Shifting gears from expensive tech to tech that no longer exists.
Oof.
Alphabet will wind down Loon's internet broadcasting balloons. This was happening? What?
Well, I mean, for those who don't know, Alphabet equals Google. Alphabet is technically the parent company of Google. Like so many Google things, it's inevitable that this was going to die. They love to start things and kill them 2 or 3 years later. That's just their MO. This one was interesting, though, as a project because the goal was to have these, I mean, essentially giant weather balloons. Funny enough, they look like UFOs, that would float around and provide wireless internet to people, especially in developing parts of the world where they don't necessarily have a lot of physical infrastructure on the ground. So it's kind of a fascinating idea, but I think no one would buy in because, like, I think maintenance would be a disaster.
Yeah, no kidding. That doesn't look like it would survive any kind of wind. It's just like it's windy and your internet disconnects.
Yeah, so as the article here just mentions, it just isn't commercially viable. It just doesn't make sense, especially, we're going to mention it a little later. There's this big surge of satellite-based stuff that's coming or is already here, and this doesn't make sense in the face of that.
Well, let us know in chat if anybody has any opinions on this. I see Jason is mentioning that he was trying to get his church live stream on Twitter, but now not sure if he can. So we might
without Periscope, that makes it a lot harder, because at least there were some weird ways to work around with Periscope to feed RTMP, custom RTMP in there. But I think with the direct Twitter app integration, you probably can't anymore. So I didn't specifically look into that, but Jason, that's probably a result.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit disappointing there. Let us know what you are using, Jason. What are you on Facebook for your church? We'd be interested to know.
Yeah.
Next up, here's something that you were actually excited about, George. This new Sony phone that has an HDMI port.
Yeah. So this is. Let's be honest, smartphones really haven't been innovative in a long time. They've been iterative, small, tiny little changes, but nothing revolutionary in a long time. Sony has decided to make something revolutionary by taking, it almost sounds like, a couple of guys from different divisions of Sony ran into each other in the lunchroom and said, hey, what would be cool if you and me high-fived and made a product? And so they've released this new phone, the Xperia Pro, basically, that has 5G, like so many new generation phones do, but they also added an HDMI input into it and the capability to use it as a field monitor.
Oh, this is super cool.
You could stick it on top of your camera, take the HDMI out from your camera, which of course they're going to want you to use their FX3, which looks awesome as well.
Or their mirrorless cameras like this.
Exactly.
This is a nice setup, actually.
A7S3, something like that. Bring the HDMI into the phone to use it as the field monitor, which means it has all the grading tools and all this stuff built into it, super high quality display, and it'll run a stream through 5G off of the phone. Which, maybe doesn't make sense.
Maybe for
I mean, for here at Epiphan, that's probably actually doesn't make sense or doesn't. but it's a fascinating thing. I think this is really cool because with that HDMI input, it could be anything, right? One of the drawbacks of people using smartphones or iPads or things like that to run live streams, like so many. Just to call back to Jason's thing, so many churches did initially, is that you're limited in what you can do with the cameras that are built in. They kind of suck, especially in big spaces. This is something where you can leverage 5G, which is good if maybe you don't have good hardline internet, and be very mobile, but actually still bring in a professional quality signal over HDMI from either a single camera and just run and gun, or maybe from something else. So I think it's really interesting. It's from what last time I looked, I think it's about $2,500.
It's not cheap.
So it's not cheap.
But if you're thinking of buying a field recorder like an Atmos or something, right, $2,500 is nothing.
And I mean, you probably spent $2,000 on your iPhone anyways, right? Yeah. So it's kind of interesting.
So professional quality signal into your camera, but relying on 5G for streaming might not be the best.
Depending on where you are.
We had this news item just last week. Rogers, one of the 3 major telecoms here in Canada, thousands of people across the country lost cell phone service for an entire day.
In the entire country, yeah. Certain areas were hit harder than others. Here where we are, it was not quite the entire day, and it was kind of spotty here and there. But I have friends out on the west coast of Canada who anyone on Rogers didn't have internet or cell service for 20-ish hours.
That's crazy, man.
And they're blaming it on a software upgrade they did on their back-end systems. I don't know if that's a good enough excuse or if that just reveals that their QA department sucks. I don't know.
Yeah, but you think about the cost of having an entire nationwide cellular network down for almost 24 hours. It's wild.
Folks
rely on their connectivity for emergency services, for all kinds of different things that.
Well, yeah, 911 couldn't even work. And Dan, how many people do you know today that still have a landline phone in their home?
I can't even get a landline in my house. No.
I don't know anybody except for my parents, but they live in the middle of nowhere. They don't even have cell service, so they have to have a landline. Yeah. But anyone who lives in a city these days, no one has a landline anymore. Mm-hmm. At least not here. So that's a big problem when these things go down.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time, because we had a major bell outage last year, fall, I believe, which affected, we lost internet for almost an entire afternoon.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, at the same time Rogers was down, Bell actually did go down in some places as well, just not as badly, so they didn't make the headlines.
Yeah. We're seeing some chat here back from Jason. He's just answering the question. So his church streams to Facebook and YouTube using an Asia Hello to YouTube and a Pearl 2 to Facebook.
Yeah.
He says they like the Pearl 2. He likes the Pearl 2 so much better. Can do more than one stream. Use it to stream multi-viewed on YouTube to personal page as well. Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Glad it's working out, Jason.
Yeah. No, that sounds great for sure.
Next up, we wanted to chat about, here's something cool. Drones on Mars.
Yeah.
Because it's not cool enough just to land a crawling robot on Mars. You have to land, you have to use a
little drone and fly around.
Yeah, an actual air drone. I think there's some video here of it taking off.
So this was always planned as part of the most recent mission, but it's taken a couple of weeks, a month, or whatever it's been to actually get this drone going. It's really interesting. It's a fascinating thing for those who want to nerd out about space stuff, right? It's the atmosphere on Mars compared to Earth is really not conducive to this sort of thing. It's very thin, and you need pressure in order for things to work. And this is essentially a dual rotor helicopter for all intents and purposes. So trying to get that to work is, it's a feat just in itself. And then you add the fact of the communications delays and all these other pieces that happen to make that work is really cool. And it's really exciting. I mean, there's a lot of things about this Mars mission that's really exciting. And this is just another one of those pieces that I think is really fascinating.
Can we have Mars drone racing, please?
Well, I know as we were getting ready for the show, our resident drone expert was giving his 2 cents on this and how amazed and impressed he is. And so, it's really cool. It's really cool. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen too, because, I think here on Earth, we've almost become accustomed to people taking drone photography now. But at the same time, when the first times that was happening and the perspective you were getting was totally different. And now we're going to be able to get that perspective change on Mars, which is really, really neat.
We're living in the future, George.
We are. We got aliens in our homes. Right. Drones on Mars. Yeah.
And we have new features for OBS.
We do. So, those who are not as blessed as Jason is with a Pearl 2 to stream might still be using a computer in OBS. Sorry. No. OBS has its cool advantages, and they're actually adding some cool stuff to it. One of the ones I was most excited for, because I've experimented with this myself, is they're natively building in NVIDIA's RTX voice system. So those who aren't familiar with that, it's a piece of software that NVIDIA released that works with their RTX series graphics cards that is basically an AI-based noise reduction system. And it works incredibly well. And so what that means is that even those who might have a higher ambient noise floor or the neighbors yelling next door like I sometimes do, this tech built into OBS means you could turn that on and it's going to just crush everything else out, and you're not going to have to worry about it. You're just going to get the person's voice. and it does work incredibly well. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think the Linus Media guys did some testing, and it was like, obviously you want to remove like keyboard clacking and mouse clicks and things like that. But it was pretty impressive that, this technology is baked into a GPU now. So
yeah, it's just cool as a way of leveraging the power of GPUs beyond, gaming and crypto mining, right? So it's kind of neat. Yeah. For the more production inclined, they were adding a bunch of other stuff, I think, as well, which looked cool.
Yeah, there was some like title queuing, setting up some macros for, some transitions and things like that. So, those are a lot of features that used to be add-on features in OBS, and now they're native. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see what people can do with it.
Yeah, I saw one guy demonstrating some of it that's like transitions per source instead of transitions per scene. So it's like you could have a specific transition to slide in an element and then slide it back out, even if that's a camera shot or something like that, instead of having to change the entire scene. So, maybe that seems like a minor difference, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it actually just dresses up the production more, which is cool.
Awesome. So that kind of wraps it up for our Lowdown segment. But next up, we have our rapid fire segment, This or That. Cue graphics.
Or that. Yeah, we're working on a jingle. If anyone has any ideas, send us an email. But we wanted to kind of jump through some of the things. And a bunch of these come back to some of those topics we were just talking about. So I'm going to kick it off, Dan. I'm going to pose to you the this or that.
Okay.
SRT or NDI? Ooh. Which and why?
I mean, I want both. I got to be honest. And if I have my PTZOptics camera, I do have both. But if I had to choose one, probably SRT, because I actually use it. NDI would be nice if I had a bunch of cameras in different places. But here in my office, I have one camera, and I just need to send that camera somewhere with a reliable protocol. So that's why, for me, it's SRT.
Fair point. I would say for me, it's, NDI is really built to be a local protocol, where SRT is meant to be an everything else protocol or local. So for me, I think it's more flexible. So that's why I would also choose SRT.
Now I have a question for you, George. This or that, Google or Microsoft?
In voice recognition, I would definitely go with Google on this. I'll admit I'm not a big fan of voice recognition and voice assistants. I do use Google every now and then, but very rarely, because I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old.
I've been using it more. Like I turn off my TV. Like, when I sit down for dinner, I don't have to go turn off the television. I just tell Google to turn it off. There's some convenience. What's the temperature, Google?
I sometimes yell at Google to turn on some music during dinner or something like that. But it's usually more of a party trick. Back pre-pandemic, you have friends over, you tell Google to tell you a joke. No, shut up. Google's trying to respond right now. Shut up, Google. I don't know. But this ties back to that whole Nuance thing. Maybe Microsoft will change the game with this acquisition.
So we have another this or that. Is this one for me? You want to cue this one up, George?
Yeah, I'll cue this one up. Again, it kind of ties back a little bit. PTZ camera or mirrorless camera? This or that?
For me, I would choose a mirrorless camera because I would like to use it for things other than just live streaming. Maybe taking some photos as well. A little more versatile, maybe. But if I had a camera that was always fixed, actually, I'm using a mirrorless camera right now, and it's working really well for the autofocus. And what is mine? The Canon M200. But yeah, your mileage may vary. Maybe a PTZ camera makes more sense for what you're using.
Yeah, I think it does. This one's a tough one because they both have strengths in different areas and both have big cons in other areas. For our friend Jason in the chat who's streaming his church service, PTZ cameras are probably the better way to go if they don't have the option of, placing mirrorless cameras in ideal positions. And they want some movement, but from a fixed position. The PTZ is obviously the way to go. But for people in their home offices, like I know people who use PTZ cameras in their home offices, and I'm not sure there's much value there. I think a mirrorless camera is a better bet. And if it's your personal camera, you still go outside and shoot photography with it. So,
let us know in chat what you guys think. I do see Duotai is saying, back to NDI, he's saying NDI great for low latency local streams and supports alpha. So there's a nice added point.
That's true. Next one.
Next up, we have, well, for our Canadian friends, Rogers versus Bell. Our internet.
Neither.
Don't make me choose.
I'll take Starlink for $2,000, Alex.
Can we just leave it at that?
We talked about the Rogers outage. I have a friend who's struggling with Bell's false advertising of where you can actually buy their services. Both companies are terrible. You can't win, and you have essentially, a monopoly in this country. So you don't really have a choice anyways. So tough.
Well, let's leave it at that. Next up, we have two very interesting characters. Who are they, George?
So this one, Dan, tell me your pick, but I'll chime in on this one too. Bezos versus Musk.
Ooh, this one's easy for me. 100% Musk. I love Musk, man.
I would agree. I mean, I don't necessarily like him as an individual human being, but I appreciate
what he is doing.
I appreciate what he's doing from a technology standpoint. And, actually this week, we didn't put it in the news segment, but this week we saw some of the first test launches of Blue Origin, which is Bezos' space company to compete with SpaceX. But at this point, isn't the race already over? He's just getting around to testing now after promising for years. And, Musk is dominating. So, I think that leads into our next one. Honestly, these kind of are combined into the next one to some degree. So what's that final one?
Well, again, this is kind of Bezos versus Musk again, but OneWeb versus Starlink.
Yeah, so Bezos doesn't control OneWeb. It was supposed to be a bunch of different things, but Starlink, both of them are microsatellite internet projects, basically. And one of them is viable and one of them isn't. Take your pick. So much like the previous one, it's like, for me, no question, Starlink, because I already said that, because it's one you can actually buy and actually use. So
is OneWeb the next Project Loon?
I mean, they already went bankrupt once.
Just a comment here in chat from Jason again. He's saying, if you are going to go with PTZ, just don't get a cheap one. They can be
That's
bad.
true. That's true.
Like anything, you get what you pay for a lot of the time. So,
yeah. So that was this or that. Yeah, so chime in on chat if you have an opinion on any of those this or that's. Everyone has their own 2 cents on these various topics. But for now, Dan, do you want to join me in the kitchen?
Let's do it.
In the kitchen. This is sharing some insight with all of you that conversations might have happened had we been in the office at all in the past 15 months.
Yeah, the kitchen's
almost.
Where we usually rub shoulders. You talk to people about what's going on around the company. We wanted to share some of what's happening around Epiphan. First up, we actually have a little video to share with our recent product launches. We always seem to have a cool launch video of some kind, and we have a very cool video for Pearl Nano. So, producer, if you want to cue that video, let's take a look.
Yeah, so this video, it is up on our YouTube channel and stuff like that, but it's really cool. I love it. SRT, yeah.
That's a cool effect there.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that effect. The secure effect. It's a good one.
Yep. So there it is. Pearl Nano. The perfect fit streamer.
Yeah. So that little sizzle is super cool. And congrats to you and the team for putting that together because it looks awesome. It's really neat. And So, people might start seeing that out there in their advertising. Hopefully you do. And I hope you like it. I think it's really cool. I love the theme of it. I love the way it's kind of put together.
Yeah, well, that orb kind of we were trying to, come up with a theme that kind of could visually emphasize the benefits of Pearl Nano. And for us, the theme was like the Pearl Nano, it's not just a bunch of features, it's the sum of its parts. And that's kind of what the orbs represent, is like, these powerful features that combine into something greater as a whole. And that's really what Nano is. It's powerful, robust features in a small, compact, fit it all together somehow. And, you get a product that can do everything you need it to do in one little device.
No, it's super cool. So I hope you guys enjoy that one and check it out. And if you know anyone who's looking at that perfect fit streamer and recorder, point them to that and share it with them.
Speaking of sharing, you've been sharing a few different things lately. You were on a couple other streams. There was a Videomaker stream that you were guest on. Maybe tell us about that.
Yeah, so Videomaker produces a bunch of different content, but they had a stream, talking about producing. Well, it was really all about live streaming, and they had a bunch of companies participate, and I joined them and basically, shared some insights and how-tos about really, producing professional quality content with remote production, remote guests, things like that. So it was an honor and my pleasure to participate in that. I thought it was a well done event. It was really great. So if you guys are interested in that, we'll try and get the chat link into chat there. But it was great, and there was a bunch of good information in there, and that presentation I gave, I think, is super relevant and has a ton of useful information for people out there. And chatting with the guys, was really great. So
if you want to look it up for yourselves, it's Videomaker producing professional quality live streams with remote speakers. You can maybe we'll put a link to that in the description of this video as well.
Also, just yesterday, I was on a different show participating in some other stuff. This one was maybe a little more targeted, but this was with Video Guys. They were hosting this education summit and basically had a whole bunch of companies come together and share some insights on technologies that could help the education market and drive a lot of this video stuff forward there. So between us, and this is why I mentioned earlier, I just saw virtually Paul from PTZOptics yesterday. We all had presentations that we did, and then at the end of the day, we also did a little bit of a roundtable discussion, which I thought was awesome actually, because there's some companies in this group that you might not imagine talk to each other very much. But if you listen to that roundtable, you might get a completely different impression about that. It's a bunch of us, really sharing our insights, our knowledge, and where we think things are going in the future, especially the future of education. As even as the pandemic winds down, online and hybrid stuff, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. So
education is changing very quickly. So a lot of good information in this. I watched this session. It was really cool. So people can probably still check it out. edustreamtv.com.
Yeah, it was just yesterday, so I haven't gotten a direct link myself to the VOD stuff yet, but we will definitely be sharing it on our social channels when we get it. But definitely check it out.
Another thing to check out, all the reviews for Pearl Nano, they're here. There's a whole bunch of different reviews that you can find now on YouTube. And we have this great blog post on the Epiphan website if you want to find all of these reviews. They're all linked here. I think we've mentioned this before, but great reviews from guys like Wendell, Level 1 Tex.
I love that
Curtis
one.
Judd,
I love the Level 1.
Aaron Parecki. So if you want to get the lowdown on Pearl Nano, the
what
place
are other
to
people
go
saying?
is epiphan.com/blog, and you'll find all these reviews there. We've embedded them right in the
Important
page.
to note that although we're kind of aggregating them and sharing them here, we did not sponsor or pay these people at all. These are independent reviewers. We just love what they said. We're really happy with it, and we would have shared them even if they said some bad stuff, because you need to hear.
Yeah, we did.
Things.
To be fair, we did get a couple notes back in some of these reviews about possible feature improvements, and that helps us because when we release our firmware updates, we want to know where we can improve the workflow on Pearl Nano as well. So that's really useful to us.
That one you have playing there from that one, to be fair, is from a partner of ours, our distributor in the UK, Holden. But Chris over there does, man, his cinematography and his presentations are awesome. It's very modern, playing with the white background and stuff, but he does such a good job.
Speaking of firmware updates, we have a firmware update that just launched last week for Pearl. Firmware update 4.14.1.
Yeah. So this isn't a massive update, but for those of you like our friend Jason in chat, I'm going to keep picking on him, who currently own Pearls, 4.14.1 rolled out late last week. This is largely a maintenance release more than anything. Most of the really quality of life things are focused very heavily around our customers who are using content management systems, Kaltura and Panopto in the case of Pearls, and making those easier to use, more reliable in a lot of cases where people saw tiny little things, leveraging some new features those platforms have allowed in their APIs. And like I said, more quality of life than anything. So definitely check it out and update it. We have some more in store come down the road with some more cool features for all of the different Pearl models in some way or another. But yeah, we always recommend you do update because sometimes it's more maintenance oriented stuff. Sometimes it's major features, and either way, you don't want to miss out. So if you have a Pearl, go and update.
And if you want to dig into the release notes, you can find everything on epiphan.com/user guides. Choose your product and you'll see it right there.
Yeah.
So I think that about wraps it up. It was nice hanging out with you again today, George. When are you setting up that router? I can't wait.
I might wait for the weekend when I can actually disconnect the internet for a longer period of time, when my better half and I are not both trying to work from home still. We'll see. And and Dan, just for you, I did wear my special T-shirt today as a reminder for you. Yes. And maybe in a future show we'll touch on what that means as we get into May.
Well, can we tease it a little bit? It's the Ride for Dad shirt, right?
It is the Ride for Dad shirt. This is last year's Ride for Dad shirt. And I guess the teaser is I have another shirt on the way. So, if any of you guys have been longtime viewers of this show, you'll know that in the past years, Epiphan staff have participated in the Ride for Dad, which is a charity event raising awareness and funds for prostate cancer and encourages men to get checked. The pandemic might be on. We might all be worried about COVID, but prostate cancer is still a very serious threat to men. We lose far too many men every year. So we try and do our part.
I'm looking forward to the Ride for Dad. Done it with you before, George, and I can't wait to get out there and go for a ride this summer. So
if it stops snowing, eh?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, my rule of thumb is I wait till I see the street sweeper on my street before the bike comes out. So I've got.
They already did mine. They already did mine. I've been out a couple times. They haven't done mine yet.
So I actually put in a request with the municipality to send a street sweeper to my street so I can ride my motorcycle.
They already did mine twice, in fact, because they did a really bad job the first time. They had to come back. But yes, it's been great. Thanks so much, Dan. Thanks for everybody watching. Appreciate Jason. Really appreciate your thoughts and feedback in the chat.
Thanks for chiming in chat as well. It was great to see you guys. Awesome. Tim Trott, we know you're there in the background. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, I did see him say hi. Yeah. And then we have another episode in 2 weeks. I honestly don't know what it is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really terrible at knowing these things in advance. I'm more of a show up on the day kind of a guy.
Yeah, you know what? We'll figure out what it's going to be, and we'll let everyone know. We're keeping it pretty fresh. We're trying to stay current. So I think that's what we did today. So
yeah. Well, we have a ton more content, not only from this show, but just in general, a ton of content we're putting out that I think people will be interested in. So to stay on top of all of that, do all the socially things and all the socially places, the follows, the likes, the subscribes, and all that stuff. And we will see you out there. Be safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
So long.